Hi, I'm Rick Bayless, and I've been exploring, cooking, and eating in Mexico for over 40 years. Now I'm taking you to Mexico City for a deep dive into the classic dishes you've asked to learn. It's time to share my best recipes ever.
Mexico One Plate at a Time is made possible by these funders.
Now, when most people say ceviche, what they're thinking about is sitting on a beach someplace, toes in the sand, enjoying a mouthful of bracing, just-made ceviche. But the truth of the matter is, in Mexico, ceviche is at home in lots of different places. I mean, just like where I am right now. This is the beautiful, venerable, elegant San Angel Inn. It was built in 1963, or I think you'd say converted in 1963, because a family bought an old hacienda in the southern part of Mexico City in San Angel and converted it into this incredible restaurant. And people have been coming here for generations now, celebrating momentous occasions in their lives. And when you look at the menu is celebrating tradition as well. And lots of people like to start with a ceviche. And what they do here is super classic. This is Huachinango, or red snapper, that is marinated in lime juice for long enough that the fish doesn't look raw anymore, and then mixed with tomatoes and cilantro and green chili and avocado, of course. Another thing that I just love about this place is their margarita service. The very first margarita I ever tasted in my life was here. And they bring you this elegant service of it so that you can enjoy a beautiful margarita with your ceviche. Really traditional way to serve ceviche is to drain it and then pile it onto crispy tostadas. These have some sliced avocado, onion, and cilantro over the top. You could squeeze more lime on if you wanted. Great way to serve it at a party. Or sometimes you'll find ceviche served like this. This is called a cocktail campechano. And at the bottom you can see shrimp, and then it's got octopus above that. Ceviche is the third thing that's in there. And then they mix in the classic Mexican cocktail sauce, top it off with some more avocado and onions and cilantro. That stuff is super delicious. Now, I'm sitting here in a street stall. I don't typically recommend that you eat ceviche in a street stall, but this place in downtown Mexico City is called El Caguamo, and it's been here forever. It's super reliable and super delicious. You might look at this plate of ceviche that's in front of me and think it was just any run-of-the-mill ceviche. I mean, there's some chili. We've got two different kinds, Manzano chili in rings, and some very thin strips of Serrano chili. There's red onion in here, of course, the lime, there's cilantro. But if you look closely, you'll see that there's one big difference in this ceviche, and that is the fish is almost raw, meaning that it was just tossed in a little lime juice and then put in the plate and then garnished with all of the vegetables, the chilies, the herbs, and so forth. That makes it a modern ceviche in my book, and I've brought you to what I think is one of the best modern seafood restaurants in Mexico City. It's called Contra Mar, and even though it's nearly 2 decades old, it's still on the cutting edge. Now, for those of us that are taken with sashimi and sushi, we would probably prefer to have our ceviche like this. But if you're looking for that real sashimi-like experience, then look on the menu for a category of dishes called aguachile. Aguachile comes from the state of Sinaloa in the western side of Mexico, and those are always made with thinly sliced raw fish or shrimp. So this is just raw shrimp that is doused right before it's served with a little bit of this herby lime juice. Those beautiful pickled red onions and cucumbers go over the top of it. And for me, this is real heaven. One of the most popular and unexpected ceviches in Mexico City doesn't come from a high-end restaurant, but a small market stall. Here in the middle of the San Juan Market, and only open on the weekends, Chef Luis Valle rotates through an ever-changing menu of the freshest seafood available. What's the concept for your menu?
The fresh seafood for my town. My town is in the north of Mexico, in Sinaloa. And the fisherman's egg. Luis, I have scallops. And he sent me scallops, and I cook scallops. Hey, I have shrimps, and I make ceviches, aguachile.
Beautiful, beautiful. He made me an incredible ceviche with arbol chiles, fresh sweet shrimp, and a variety of vegetables. Now, this is not the kind of presentation I'm used to seeing in a market stall. So this is clearly modern-styled ceviche. You get the explosive flavors of the lime and then the red chili in this case, because it was chile de arbol that was in here. But then you get this beautiful balance with very finely chopped cucumbers in here. This gorgeous sweet shrimp that's flown in from Sinaloa that I think is the best shrimp in all of Mexico. A gorgeous presentation with the very thinly sliced red onion on top, and then what they call cilantro criollo here, which has a more pungent kind of flavor. This is the work of somebody who really understands how to balance flavors, and it's so delicious. Come to the Santander stall in the San Juan Market in Mexico City, I'm just like a kid in a candy store. There's so much abundance, there's so much freshness. What do you make the ceviche out of? I remember when I've used the squid that's cooked for making ceviche, there's a beautiful piece of tuna there. Once I made ceviche out of pompano, and it was so exquisite, very beautiful texture. We just had a ceviche that was made from these beautiful blue shrimp from Sinaloa, but just around the corner here is what I really wanted to show you, because this is beautiful, fresh American red snapper. Now, when you're talking about fresh fish for ceviche, you need to know what you're looking for. Now, usually we will use saltwater fish, not freshwater fish, for a number of different reasons. But when I'm looking for fish that's absolutely fresh enough for ceviche, the first thing that I look for is the eye. And if the eye is bulging and clear, that's a really good sign of freshness. Second thing I look for is if the gill is bright red, then that's a second indication of freshness. Third thing I look for, I tap on the fish, and if it's resilient, I know that it's probably a very fresh fish. The fourth thing that I'm going to show you, and it's what you will really have to use when you only have fillets to choose from, is your nose. You have to smell it. And if it smells clean and beautiful like the sea, then it's going to be fish that's fresh enough to use for your ceviche. Now, my best ever ceviche is probably going to surprise you a little bit because it doesn't have any exotic ingredients in it. It doesn't have any tropical fruit in it, though I do love those kinds of ceviches. But I'm kind of a traditionalist, and when I think of the very best ceviche, I think about freshness and balance. And that's what I want to show you, because I don't think you can ever improve on that perfect classic ceviche. So the first thing that we have to talk about is lime for the ceviche. And I've got two different kinds of limes here. We've got the traditional lime you will find in the United States, and that one is typically called a Persian lime or a hybrid lime or a Bayless lime. The other type of lime that I want to talk about is what they call a limón criollo here in Mexico. We typically will call it a Mexican lime or a key lime. When you taste them side by side, the Persian lime will be a little less acidic and a little less aromatic. So if you want to make the best ever ceviche, choose the key limes or the Mexican limes because they'll give you that richness of flavor. But you'll notice that there's a difference in color. Oftentimes in the United States, when we see the key limes or Mexican limes, they're bright green color. But the flavor of the key lime really comes into its own when it has started to yellow. So if you buy the key limes, let them sit on your countertop for a few days until they start to turn yellow. I bought a gorgeous fillet of that beautiful red snapper here, and our next step is to cut that up into cubes, a little less than 1/2 inch squares. Okay, that will go into our bowl. And I like to chop up the onion and put it in there because when it soaks with the lime, it takes a little of that sting out of the onion. That'll get scooped right on top of the fish there. And then when we add the lime juice to this, usually 1.5 cups per pound of fish. We want it to float freely so that the lime juice can do its thing to actually denature the proteins of the fish, just like cooking would do. We'll let that sit in the refrigerator for a little while. Some people like to leave it for 10 minutes, others like to leave it for several hours, depending on how done you want the fish to be. My sweet spot is about 30 minutes. While the fish is marinating in the lime juice, I'm going to cut up all the rest of the traditional ingredients that go into it. I've got green chili, I've got some tomato, I've got cilantro, and what they like in the state of Veracruz is a little bit of chopped green olive, so I'm going to put that in as well. You can see that the fish has sort of turned a milky white on the outside, but when you tear open a piece, you can see that it's still very rare on the inside. So that's my style of ceviche. Our next step here is to tip off about 3/4 of the lime, and again, that's my preference. So I'm adding all the vegetables to it now. And we're to the final ingredients and the final seasonings. I'm going to start with salt, but I will tell you that salting ceviche can be slightly problematic for people because they confuse on their palate salt with acid. If it's too acidic for you, if it's too tangy for you, I put a pinch of sugar in there, or what I have here, which is just a little drizzle of orange juice, which will add a gentle sweetness to it. We'll stir that, and then I'm going to chop an avocado and add that to the bowl for that little bit of gentle creaminess. When I serve ceviche, oftentimes I'll serve it as a first course for a nice meal, and then I serve a small portion like this. In the summertime, maybe ceviche becomes the main attraction. In Mexico, they always like to eat ceviche with saltine crackers. Personally, I like to have it with crispy tortilla chips, so you can make that choice. And then during the summertime, a lot of times when we have parties, we want simple pass-around fare. And I'll drain this ceviche and then pile it onto crispy tostadas, lay a slice of avocado over the top of it, and then put on some cilantro leaves for a really, really beautiful party food.
I love sushi, so I love the kind of ceviche where the lime juice just is really there to season it, not necessarily soak in it.
So that's the kind of ceviche that we're going to make for you. This one is seasoned with what we call adobo verde. It's 2 different kinds of herbs that are blended with roasted garlic and green chilies, then seasoned with a touch of lime juice and a shot of Blanco tequila. And the fish that we're going to use is Baja yellowtail, or Mexican yellowtail. It'll remind you of what's called hamachi in the sushi restaurants. I'm going to go cut up the fish. You want to show them how to make that adobo verde?
Absolutely. So for the adobo verde, we are starting with some roasted garlic and roasted serranos. Now I've done these with the skin on, so we're going to have to peel them out. And now for the serranos, you can just put them directly into the blender jar as is. Next for the herbs, we've got cilantro, no stems, and next we've got some parsley. Now just a little bit of oil needs to go in there to help get it all blended up. The rest of the oil will get dribbled in there slowly throughout the blending. Before it's done blending, you'll need to add just about a teaspoon of salt. Now that that's all smooth, it's ready to go. I'm gonna cut up some limes for the ceviche in the meantime.
Got all the fish, cucumber, those little ones from the farmers markets, avocado, and I'm going to drizzle on about a half a cup of this adobo verde.
Perfect, and then I'll top it with the lime juice.
Good. It's looking pretty fresh and beautiful, huh? I know it's going to need some salt, and then our special ingredient.
Oh, of course.
Okay, Blanco tequila. Well, we'll start with that. We'll see. Maybe we want more than that. Okay. I'm going to give it a very gentle stir here. Look at that. That fish is unbelievable. It's so fresh. Now we've got a platter there lined with little butter lettuce. This is a kind of perfect thing for having a party, right?
Yeah, easy, light, fresh.
One of the most elegant ceviches that I know starts with fresh shrimp and then adds coconut, green chili, lime, and mint. First thing we got to do is to chop up the peeled shrimp. I'm going to cut it into about 1/2-inch pieces. Now I'm going to put it into a bowl here and cover it with fresh squeezed lime juice. I want to make sure that the shrimp floats freely in here. And then I'm going to put it into the refrigerator for about 20 minutes. That's all I'm going to let it sit in there. That'll be enough to just start to cook the exterior of the pieces of shrimp, but they won't get tough. We have 3 different components that are going to be added to that shrimp that's in the lime juice. One is green onions, which I'm going to cut up into small pieces, and the other is jicama, and I'm going to chop that into small pieces after I peel it. It's got a fairly thick skin on it, so I have to go a little deeper than you would expect with something like this. Now, if you've never worked with one of these young coconuts before, you're in for a treat, but you do need a large knife to be able to get into it. Remember, it is filled with beautiful, delicious coconut water, but we've got to get the outer husk off so that we can get to that really tender, almost formed meat that's on the inside. So you could do it with like a chef's knife if you wanted to, but it's way easier if you'll work with a cleaver here. So I'm going to cut down into it, and I'm going to try to expose the part where the nut starts. So when you see some of that brown skin peeking through there, that's the place that you know you want to be able to start to go into it. I'm just going to go around using the edge of my knife here to kind of make perforations, I think you would call it. So start to pry that all up and then open it up. Now I'm going to cut down through it like this. And you see how tender and soft that is? That's the good stuff. That's what I'm going to cut up and use in this beautiful coconut shrimp ceviche. Okay, we've got our jicama green onions and young coconut ready to go. And now I'm gonna make what I will call a dressing for our lime-soaked shrimp. And it's gonna start with a can of coconut milk that I'm gonna put into the blender jar. I've got a couple of serrano chilies here that I'm going to just cut the stems off of and roughly chop up here. Those go in with the coconut milk. And a surprising ingredient, but one that I think is just spectacular in this, is to put mint leaves. So I'm going to take the leaves off of the stalk, and this will surprise you too, but in this ceviche it's absolutely perfect. Just a little tiny bit of sugar. So that's going to go onto the blender base, and we're going to just blend it until it's completely pureed. So the shrimp has been in there for about 20 minutes now, and I can tell that it's ready because it's turned white on the outside. It's not translucent on the outside. But if I were to leave it in a lot longer in the lime juice, it can really risk getting tough. So I'm going to pour off the lime juice, except leaving about 1/3 of a cup or so of it in there. Next, coconut dressing will go in there. This is sort of spicy and obviously has that minty quality to it. It looks so rich and so beautiful. And now the other ingredients will go in here. When you taste that fresh young coconut in here, you'll be just amazed because it's got such an elegant texture. Now stir everything together. I haven't added any kind of salt to this yet, so I'm going to give it what I think it's going to need here. Stir that in. I'm ready to serve. I have some mint leaves to garnish with. And there you have shrimp ceviche with coconut, lime, green chili, and mint. Okay, so I fired up your appetite. Some of my favorite dishes, entertaining tips, and Mexican travel inspirations. Well, now I want to hear what you have to say. Visit us at rickbayless.com/TV for recipes and a whole lot more.